Chicago Bears fans, it's been a minute since we talked on this channel, and today I have some housekeeping things I want to go over before we get into the video, but I also have some really interesting things that I want to talk about on this road to training camp as we prepare. I'm going to give you 3 guys that I'm watching heavily in training camp that I think could be big impact players on this team, and it starts in training camp, so this is why I'm watching them now. With the housekeeping, finally got one of those finals out of the way. If you don't know, I am a college student, got that out of the way, so we have some film breakdowns coming up. And this is a player breakdown, a guy who's been linked to the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm not going to reveal the player just yet. You may see the player in a community post. If you're on that, you may see that before you see this video. And also, have another episode 5, what to expect. So those are some of the things we have in the works. And I want to question you guys, Chicago Bears fans. What would you think about a player-specific Justin Fields breakdown? This is an idea that just popped into my head. And I want to talk about how some of the tweaks, because I've talked about them, but I want to show it with the film, how some certain tweaks in his game could launch him into superstardom. So let me know what you think about that. Comment below if that's something you would be interested in, a player-specific Justin Fields breakdown, about 10 to 15 minutes talking about your quarterback. Now, getting into the video with the guys that I like for the offense with the training camp, I'm going to start off with Claypool. Now, I haven't gotten to this issue, and I wanted to get to this issue, but now is the time I'm speaking on it. This is kind of late news, but I'm not discussing just about the news. I want to talk about some good things about him that I saw and what I want to expect. But with the negativity surrounding Chase Claypool, and I've heard the reports, I saw it, I just want to know, why does everything have to be negative? Because I just saw, and I talked about this with you guys, the Chicago Bears fans. I said, coming from Pittsburgh, being a Pittsburgh guy myself, I understand he had some growing up to do. He had some things to work on as far as mentally in preparation for the game. And I talked about it and saying Chicago Bears reported that he had those changes. He was making improvements mentally, preparation. He was doing that. He was looking good in the first half of the offseason phase until he had the injury. So with that being said, how have we gone from he's a guy who's making all these changes, he's a guy who's growing up, who's maturing at a quick pace right in front of our eyes, how do we shift from that to now he's a negative guy? So now Chicago Bears aren't happy with the trade. You gave up the 2nd round pick to get him. And understand, one thing I do want to say about this trade, quarterback and a receiver. With Justin Fields, a guy who's still young, who's still learning. With Chase Claypool, a guy who's still young, still learning. He came in the middle of the season. I did not expect at all for this to just blast off and take off like a rocket. Because with a quarterback and with the receiver, we have to understand maturation process. I talk about that with a lot of players, with a lot of positions, but it's none like a quarterback and a receiver, that connection that those two guys have to have. And we see DJ Moore and Justin Fields, they've been clicking in OTAs and no pads, so we can't really look too deep into that. But with the Justin Fields, you're playing football games. This is live football. We got to get our timing down. We got to get our connection down. We got to get the speed. And with Justin Fields, a guy who's a scrambling quarterback, can get out of the pocket. With Chase Claypool, I have to understand a couple things. I have to understand, how do you like your routes ran? If I'm running a fade ball, if I'm running a dig, what depth do you want me to be at? Because it's one thing to run a route, it's another thing to get open for your quarterback. So if I'm running a comeback, if I'm running a vertical, do you want me to be aware based on the coverage? Do I need to get at a back shoulder angle? Do I need to go for the fade ball at a different leverage? It's these little things and the small things that we have to talk about. They can't get that in that short amount of time. So I didn't expect it to be a huge connection, to be Chase Claypool, a top 10, top 5 receiver in that season. So I can understand why some people are frustrated, and I can side with that in saying that you gave up the pick, you gave up major draft capital to get this guy, and you want him to be a superstar. Be patient. I still believe in Chase Claypool, and I still trust in him to be a guy. Now, we look at his height, we look at his weight, his speed, all of the intangibles are there. But with that being said, now, we were looking at all the positivity, things were looking up for Chase Claypool, and now we came out with a negative report saying that he's not a guy who's going to prepare as hard as he could. He's not trying to get back on the football field as fast as he should, as fast as he could. And I just don't understand that, and I think that is false. I truly think that's not the true case about Chase Claypool. I've seen a lot of Chase Claypool, watch interviews, being a Steelers guy, seeing him in the locker room, seeing how he interacts with his teammates, seeing how his teammates speak about him. And I said, he has some growing up to do. He has some maturing to do. But when we say that, he's been doing that, and then we take it all back. That's where my questions come in. I believe Chase Claypool is getting ready for a dominant season at receiver, being the number 2 receiver or number 3 beside a Mooney, beside a DJ Moore. So that's what I want to say about him. Now, getting into the player himself, talking about what I expect for training camp, I expect a lot. Expect him to go and continue to get those contested catches, to continue to be a deep threat. Now, with this, what I want to see him work on, that's kind of that intermediate, working on more sure hands, but in the intermediate routes, using your body to shield guys off in coverage. And also, we have DJ Moore, we have Darnell Mooney. These are guys who can run. We got Tyler Scott, a guy who can run. So with that being said, we can't run 4 verticals every play. So if we're using DJ Moore, if we're using Tyler Scott, Darnell Mooney, these guys are stretching the defense, stretching the coverage. Just be that guy in the intermediate, having that big body. And also, I haven't talked about this much, but Chase Claypool can be a big slot. We saw him in that role some in Pittsburgh. He can do that. Now, he has the body of a prototypical Z or X receiver, but he could be a big slot. And maybe certain formations, certain packages, certain matchups with the defensive backs, he could be in that big slot role. So that's something I want to touch on too. But a lot of expectations, and it's just preparation, maturing, and getting better in the intermediate, more sure hands, getting that timing. I don't question the talent. It's all about how can you make it work with Justin Fields. I believe in training camp he could and should do that. So that's why I'm watching him. Now, second guy I want to talk about, and it's been kind of all up for this guy. That's Roshan Johnson. I like a lot of what I'm hearing about Roshan Johnson. Now, I listened to the Texas running back coach, and I also talked to you guys about that. But he was basically saying, okay, this is a guy. We bring in Bijan. Bijan's getting all of the spotlight. Now, we saw Bijan drafted high by the Atlanta Falcons. He was getting a lot of spotlight before that. This is a guy who was in the running for the Heisman candidate. We think of Texas football, you thought of Bijan Robinson. But they had another guy who was there on that roster, and Bijan kind of took some of his carries, kind of took some of his shine that he could have felt like, okay, this is not going to work for me. You're getting all the shine. You're getting all the carries. Everyone's looking at you. I'm a running back too. I want my touches. I want to be in the spotlight. He didn't do that at all. He went on special teams. He played his heart out. He did everything he could, and that's what was echoed by the Texas running back coach. Now, I put a lot of stock into things like that. I don't know if you guys do, but I do personally, because that's telling me the type of player you are. If you're going to play your tail off on special teams, if you also can run the ball, and when you're getting your touches, you're still getting a lot of yards per game. You're still getting yards in football games, even in a shorter sample size than what you would have wanted particularly. I like a lot of that for Roshan Johnson. And expecting in training camp, he's a guy who's not going to shine in OTAs. He's not going to route you up on the option route. He's not going to route you up on the wheel route against the linebacker down the field. He's going to hit you in the mouth. And that's what I'm expecting in training camp. He's going to set a tone for these running backs with a Deonta Foreman, a guy who's going to hit you in the mouth, with a Khalil Herbert, a guy who I look at as more agile. But this is a physical backfield. Even Justin Fields, he's not shying away from guys. Now, you need to get out of bounds this year, but he's not going to shy away from guys because he's scared. And I like that. I think that Roshan Johnson, the touches that he does get, he will capitalize if he's a guy who starts off early on special teams. That may be his role. And you probably say, this is a guy who's not slated as a starter. We got Foreman, we got Herbert. Why do you even care? I care a lot because I think he's a guy who can make a run to be a guy in this room. And I'm talking about significant carries on this team. Being the short yardage back, being the workhorse, being the power back. I think there's a role for him specifically on this team and early in the season. So that's just a lot of things that I like with Roshan Johnson. Like them coming into the college process. And you got to think, when you're regarded as a second to third round pick with a top 10 running back who was drafted on your team, that says a lot about you. How in the world can you even be regarded as a day 2 pick, an early day 2 pick, when you got a guy who's a early day 1 pick on your team? That's telling me you have a lot of talent. You got to think about it. Now, if you're a receiver, if you're any other running back, we got a guy who's a top 10 back and he gets all the shine. He's doing what he does. Now I'm going to drop. Now I'm going to be a 5th or 6th round pick. I'm not going to be highly regarded by these teams, but he was highly regarded. So like I said, it's more intangibles, and I do like the on-the-field performance, but a lot of intangibles working for Roshan Johnson, and I put a lot of stock into that. Now, my last guy, I could play this cool, I could play it easy and say Justin Fields. I'm not going to do that because, of course, everybody's watching Justin Fields in training camp, but I want to talk about Darnell Wright. on this offensive line, a nasty guy, a big guy, a huge offensive tackle coming from the University of Tennessee. I just want to see it. I want to see it in pads, and it's not a lot of questions. I do want to see how he works from the transition from power to speed. How does he deal with these speed guys? Because in the NFL now, on both sides, you're facing dominant rushers. It used to be these guys were lined up over the left tackle. The left tackle had to be the guy who's dominant. But the NFL now, so much talent being brought into the league. We look at the division. We got rushers. We got Aiden, Julio Oquaras, Romeo Oquaras. We got the guys on the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers having a Kenny Clark, having a Rashawn Gary, having these rushers, Preston Smith. You're going to be facing guys in the division on your schedule. So I just want to know, how does he match up with the speed guys in particular? I really like his anchor. I really like his play strength. Getting more in shape, and I'm expecting some of that too. But in training camp, just dominating. In the run game, I do still expect this to be a balanced team, but leaning more towards the run. We know Chicago Bears fans, we're not gonna sugarcoat it. We already know this is a team who wants to run the ball, who's going to run the ball. So that's what I have my eyes on. And really with him, learning from these guys, learning from a Braxton Jones, learning from a Cody Whitehair, learning from all of the guys in this room on the offensive line, and kind of becoming an early leader. I don't need him to be vocal. I don't need him to talk to a lot of guys or be the guy who is leading the huddle. I just want you to lead by example. Be nasty, set the tone for this offensive line, and that's all I want to see from Darnell Wright. I really like Darnell Wright. Now, people like Broderick Jones, people like Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson. We've all had this conversation. This was a conversation we had in the draft process. I've dropped videos talking about all of these tackles. And I think that with Darnell Wright being more so fit for the right tackle, we look at Broderick Jones, we look at Paris Johnson Jr. Those guys, they're kind of geared to play left tackle for the teams they were drafted by. And I think that with Darnell Wright, he was the fit for this team. I would have liked Peter Skoronski as well, but like I said, with the measurements, we talk about Matt Eberflus, all of these guys, knowing that they want a guy who fits the prototype. Darnell Wright, I have no problems at all with the pick. I really do like it. And now, this year, what do we expect from the team in general? I'm expecting a great improvement for the season. I'm expecting a lot of things, but these are my 3 guys for right now. And also, like this video, comment below if you want to see a defensive side of this. I might got way more than 3 guys on the defense that I'm expecting, because they overhauled the defense. On the offensive side, I think it's more so developing these guys. On the defensive side, it's some new names, some new faces, and some real dogs in that room. So what I want to talk about, and let me know also what you think about the Justin Fields specific breakdown, something I'm looking into, and I'm probably going to get into the film pretty soon after we work on what to expect. Already have the breakdown ready for tomorrow with the guy who I said was linked to this team. Don't think you're going to get him, but let me know what you think about this player as well, because some Chicago Bears fans, they might, have a pipe dream. They might want this guy in their room, but that's going to do it for today. I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Just some talking points. The news is kind of slow right now, but it's no off season at 24 Hour Sports. We always have something to talk about. And last thing I want to touch on, last thing I do want to touch on before I get out of here, probably going to be covering about 4 to 5 teams for training camp. So not revealing those teams you're going to see. We're going to all see, but I do want to say we're still going to be covering the biggest news of training camps. And that's talking about all 32 teams. The biggest news out there, we're going to be on it. But talking in depth, getting a relationship with these guys, talking about the teams more in specific and film wise. It's going to be about 4 or 5 teams when training camp rolls around. I'm excited for training camp. And as you can see by this video, I'm ready. Let me know what you think in these comments. I'm really done now. That's going to do it for today. And now we out.